All right, everybody, welcome back. We are moving on to round two here. We've got a collection of defensive ends in this upcoming draft that are currently being projected in about round number two. Doesn't mean they'll land there, but a projection as good as any, and I think it's reasonable in all three cases. So let's start with Kris Jenkins of Michigan. This one's going to be very interesting because there are connections with him and Mike Macdonald. Kris Jenkins was there when Mike Macdonald was the defensive coordinator at Michigan. So we have a firm basis to assume that Mike Macdonald likes this guy a lot. 22 years old, 6'3", 299 pounds, so decent size. 34-inch arms, we like that. Nice long arms. 9 and 3/8 inch hands. Testing numbers were mostly really good. 40-yard was great. 10-yard split was good. Vertical was okay. The broad was remarkable. So this guy's got some real explosiveness in his lower body. His this is actually, I believe, the 20-yard shuttle. I forgot to qualify that. Yeah, 20-yard shuttle was not good. Bench press was good. So not all great or anything, but he's a good athlete overall. Very fast, very quick. And every big board has him in the second round, except the Draft Network has him in the third, and Walter Football has him in the first. So the database has him in the second. Split the difference. But that seems like a pretty reasonable expectation for him. Second round. In 2023, he had 37 tackles, 4.5 for loss, 2.5 sacks, a pick. The stats are not overwhelming. They're fine, but you're not going to look at this and go, yeah, this is totally a guy that I want to spend a really high pick on. 2022 stats were also fine. 54 tackles, 3.5 for loss, 2 sacks, good PFF grade. The thing to really consider with Kris Jenkins is that he's anchoring the elite Michigan Wolverines defense. I don't know if he's the best player on that defense over the last couple of years, but he might be. He might be. Let me bump it up. By the way, to take care of that extra space I now have. The good things about Kris Jenkins: anchored multiple elite defenses, like I said. His father was a 4-time Pro Bowler in the NFL, defensive tackle, so family roots in the NFL, familiarity with Mike Macdonald. He's high effort, always going, always pushing, always trying to find the play, always trying to find the ball. He stacks and sheds well. He's got the long arms and he knows how to use them to stack and shed. He's a great athlete for his size. He's almost 300 pounds and he's running a 4.9 140. That's really good. And he's also got the quickness to get into gaps if you want to use him as a gap shooter. And he does use his hands well. He doesn't have a ton going on in his pass rush arsenal yet, and while he's only 22 and he could improve a little bit, it's possible that he ends up being more of a run stopper at the next level. And I also don't think there's a lot of bull rush power here. So he may just end up being one of those guys who ekes out a few sacks a year and never really develops the full bag of tricks and just becomes a really good run stuffer. Now, I don't mind that so much personally because he would be a 3-4 end here, and run stuffing and taking up your gaps and taking on double teams is kind of important. More important than maybe actually making plays and penetrating, but he's not really a guy you want taking on double teams either necessarily. Maybe he could get there. I don't know. This one's kind of tough. He gets knocked off balance sometimes. Like, again, I think the fit is better than with some of the previous guys, but I'm not convinced the fit is there. So, early down contributor initially. I think he can make up some ground and become a little bit of a better pass rusher. I don't think he's an ideal 3-4 fit. I think it could work. I don't love his ability to hold up against double teams right now, but maybe he could get there. I would take him in the second round. I think second round is fair. I'm not completely in love with it, but I could see it working because I do think he's a very good run defender and might take to a 3-4 fairly well. Next guy, we got a guy on the other side of the big rivalry, Michael Hall Jr., Ohio State. Only 21, still very young. 6'3", 290 pounds, so definitely more undersized than most of the guys we look at here. That's not necessarily a problem for a 3-4 defense, but we have to keep in mind that McDonald seems to like the slightly bigger guys. 33.5-inch arms, 10-inch hands, nice measurables. Big boards. Walter Football loves him, has him in the first. PFF has him just outside the top 100. Everyone else has him in like the second or third. and the database has him just barely in the second round. So if I had to guess, I'd say he ends up going in like the third, but right now he's mocked in the second. Not big production the last 2 years. He had decent production in 2022, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. And then last year, 2 tackles for loss, a sack and a half. Still graded well, still a good, useful player for sure. But he didn't even manage a total of 45 tackles over the last 2 seasons. And part of that is because of injuries, but the production just, bottom line, hasn't really been there. He holds up fairly well against double teams given how small he is. I will give him credit there. He does this thing where he kind of corkscrews his plant leg into the ground, and that allows him to stand up to double teams and not get pushed out of the play as much as you might expect. He uses his hands to maneuver through blockers to get pressure on the quarterback. He's good at using his hands to keep offensive linemen away from him. He's got legitimate pass rush moves as well. He's got the up and under. He's got a swim. He's got that stuff. He's a good block shedder as well. He stacks and sheds well, uses his decently long arms fairly well, and he gets to the ball carrier using it. And look, there's a lot of room for him to grow. He's only 21. He's very young. So he can get better over the next couple of years very easily just by getting to 23, 24. He does have a lean frame. I don't know how good he'll be at playing inside. I don't know how good he'll be as a 4-eye in this defense because he is a little bit on the smaller side, might not be able to hold up as well. Didn't take steps forward in 2023. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. If anything, he regressed a little bit. Had some injury issues. I still wouldn't expect him to be a paragon of holding up in run blocking. Like, I know what I said about double teams, but that's on a curve. He's only 290. I still wouldn't exactly count on him to hold up against double teams to prevent opening up a run gap. So there's still some issues here with Hall that I have. Honestly, watching him last year, I was unimpressed in general. I'm a little more intrigued now, but not by that much. I'm still kind of cold on him. So I don't know. This strikes me as like one of those undersized 3-techs that you put out there just to rush the passer. And I'm not saying that kind of stuff doesn't translate to the NFL in a 3-4 potentially. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm not in love with this one personally. So third round would be okay. I don't know about the fit. Again, when it comes to that kind of stuff, you got to leave it up to McDonald. It's his defense, and he gets to decide what fits in his defense. But I don't know. This strikes me more as like one of those pass rushing specialized 3-techs in a 4-3. All right. One more guy for this video. It's Braden Fiske of Florida State. This was the combine superstar at the position. He did wonders for his draft stock with that combine. Florida State Seminole, 24 years old, so he's an older guy, which means he might be close to capped out. But based on how good of a physical specimen he is, there might be a little bit of gold to dig into here. 6'4", 292 pounds, so a little bit on the smaller side. Really short arms, like alarmingly short, 31 inches. That's a problem. 9 3/8 inches. Hands, okay. These are crazy good testing numbers. Pretty much everything is 90th percentile except for the 10-yard split, which is still really good. Bench press was a little below average, but the speed, the quickness, the explosiveness, the change of direction. He moves like a linebacker almost. There are some linebackers that don't run this quick. Not many, but you don't want a linebacker who's that slow, but the guy can move. The guy can move at a remarkable rate. So there's a reason why a couple of big boards have actually promoted him to the first, even though most have him in the second, and that's where he is aggregate. So yeah, Walter Football has him in the third. They're kind of behind on him, I think. But over the last 2 years, he's got over 100 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, very productive. 3 forced fumbles in 2022, good PFF grades. Much better in 2022 than 2023, though. Take it for what it is. He had a little more production in terms of bulk stats in 2022 as well, but still really good. He's another one of these maximum efforts at all times, players always going at 100 miles an hour. The testing numbers speak for themselves. He's always hunting the ball. He's always using his hands to keep blockers away from him, so that way he can make a go-blank play on the ball and he won't get stuck on a blocker too much. He's always trying to go disrupt the play. He's agile and fast enough for twists and stunts. He's going to be great on twists and stunts because his quickness and agility and speed will allow the blitz to get home quickly. And even though he is a little bit smaller, he hits with firm pop when he collides with blockers. He really has some knockback power on these linemen, even though he's a little bit smaller, because he converts speed to power really well. Now, the short arms are such that I do wonder how this is going to work at the NFL level. I do wonder if he'll be able to engage on his terms at the NFL level. He's got to get around that. Obviously, some players have, but this is still alarming. This is a problem. He doesn't really have the strength to hold gaps at the line. If you double team him, you will probably push him out of the play because strength is not his game, which again, maybe makes him not such a great fit. He doesn't have great shedding skills once he gets engaged with a lineman, which you wouldn't expect him to have because he's got the short arms, but is it going to get worse in the NFL? He plays too high. He needs to learn how to use leverage better. He plays standing straight up sometimes. And occasionally, I think he runs himself out of the play because he is too aggressive. It's like that trade-off of these guys who are always like active, always running around, maximum effort. Sometimes you overrun the play. So I don't know. This one's really tough for me. I really like him. I don't know if he's a fit for what the Seahawks need at the position because I don't know how he's going to hold up in the interior. He's probably meant to be like a 4-3-3 tech, and that's something that I keep thinking when I look at most guys in this defensive line class, unfortunately. So I like him a lot. I think he's worth a second rounder. I would just have to, you'd have to ask Mike Macdonald, could you make it work with a guy like this? A guy who has short arms, is undersized, and is all about speed and agility over something like strength. So it's his call, but with the information I have, I wonder how it would work, how he would hold up against the run. All right, another video coming later today. More defensive end prospects. See you guys then. Go Hawks.